I moved to the city about 3 months ago. I had just turned 32 and thought living in an apartment would be easy. I imagined I'd meet new people and settle in quickly. The building looked old but charming when I first saw it. My first night was a bit strange, though. I was busy unpacking boxes in my living room when I heard it. A faint tapping came from above. At first, I thought it was just the building settling. But the sound turned into thudding. It had this steady rhythm that made my skin crawl. I tried to ignore it while working, but it drowned out my thoughts, especially at night when I wanted to sleep. Days passed, but the thudding didn't stop. I noticed my neighbor across the hall leaving at odd hours. They looked hurried, like they were hiding something. I never saw their face clearly, just shadows moving behind the curtains. It sent chills down my spine. One night, I came home late and heard the thudding again. It was louder, almost like it was keeping time with my heartbeat. I felt a strange connection, as if it was saying I wasn't alone. That night, I thought of knocking on my neighbor's door. Maybe I could ask them about the noise. But I hesitated, feeling like I might be intruding. Then the packages started showing up. The first one was small, addressed to someone named Sarah. I didn't know a Sarah. The second package appeared the next day, even bigger. I debated returning them, but I didn't want to get involved in someone else's business. The boxes piled up by the door, staring at me like they knew something I didn't. One night, I was working late when I suddenly heard a loud crash from above. I jumped up, my heart racing. I wondered if something had fallen. I considered knocking on my neighbor's door, but I felt this heavy silence instead. My gut told me nothing was right as I stood there. I noticed a shadow under their door. It flickered, then disappeared. I froze. I felt cold all over. Couldn't breathe. Then I heard a voice. Help me. I looked around, but no one was there. Felt like my heart was in my throat. Part of me wanted to run away, but I felt trapped. My eyes darted back to their door, and I knocked, my fingers trembling. No answer, just that silence. I waited for a moment, then turned to my own door. The sound of thudding started again. It was louder, angrier this time. I backed away slowly. As I turned, I saw the shadow again, clearer this time. It lingered for a moment, then vanished. I didn't know what any of it meant. The crashing, the tapping, the boxes, and that voice. Every time I thought I had it figured out, something else would happen. I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was very wrong in my building. Just then, more packages appeared at my door. My hands trembled as I picked one of them up. Felt heavy. I wanted to scream, to run away, but I was trapped. The next day, I decided I couldn't ignore it any longer. I had to learn more about the strange happenings in my building. I looked at the packages stacked by my door, each one a reminder of the chaos above me. One of them was rattling slightly, like something was shifting inside. I dropped it like a hot potato, suddenly nervous about what I might find. I took a deep breath and stepped into the hallway. My neighbor's door was still closed, but now it felt even more imposing. I approached it slowly, my hand hovering above the doorknob. What if the person inside was in trouble? Then I heard it again, the unmistakable thudding from above. But this time, it was accompanied by something else, of frantic scratching, like nails on wood. I looked up, my pulse quickening. Against my instincts, I knocked on the door. Hello? Is anyone there? My voice sounded small in the silence. For a moment, there was nothing, just the thudding and scratching echoing from above. Just as I turned to leave, the door creaked open slightly, revealing a dimly lit room. It was a narrow space, filled with dark furniture that didn't match. I couldn't see who lived there. Are you all right? I asked hesitantly, peering into the shadows. No answer. Instead, a faint whisper floated out, barely audible. Come in. I hesitated, feeling a chill creep up my spine. My instincts screamed at me to leave, but my curiosity pushed me forward. I stepped inside, the door swinging shut behind me with a soft click. The air was thick and heavy with something I couldn't quite place. My eyes adjusted to the low light, and I could make out more details: a dusty table with scattered papers, and there, in the corner, an old chair facing the wall. Just then, the thudding above stopped. The silence was deafening. I turned to say something, but there was no one there. Panic surged through me. I backed towards the door, but I couldn't find the doorknob. It felt like I was trapped in a bizarre dream. When I noticed the packages piled up in the corner. They looked the same as the ones outside my door. My heart raced. Were they the same? I hesitated. Had my neighbor just been collecting them? Suddenly, a loud crash rang out from above. The noise echoed through the apartment, shaking the floor beneath me. I jumped back, and in that moment, the door behind me swung wide open. A figure stood there, a woman, her face shadowed but familiar somehow. "You shouldn't be here," she warned, glancing nervously at the ceiling. Her words hung in the air, filled with urgency. But before I could respond, the thudding started again, more frantic than ever, as if whatever was up there was fighting its way free. My heart raced, and I realized I couldn't just stand there. I needed answers, and the chaos above felt like it was beckoning me. Just as I turned to leave, I noticed something glinting on the floor, a small object half hidden beneath one of the packages. I bent down to pick it up. When I recognized it was a key, old and rusty, and it felt oddly significant. Before I could think, a scream erupted from above, chilling me to the bone. Whatever was happening, I had to uncover the truth. I stood there, heart pounding, the key trembling in my hand. The woman in the doorway watched me, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and something else, anticipation. The scream echoed again, reverberating in my bones, urging me to act. "Who are you?" I managed to ask, trying to keep my voice steady. "I am just trying to help," she stammered, glancing nervously over her shoulder. "But you shouldn't be involved in this." A heavy thud from above made her flinch, and I instinctively stepped back. My mind raced. Help? Why did she seem more scared than I was? The key weighed heavily in my palm, and I felt compelled to take action, to understand what was hidden in this madness. "Help with what?" I pressed, taking a step toward her. "What's going on?" Before she could answer, another crash echoing from above smashed through the air. Felt like a warning. I could see apprehension etched on her face. The thudding had turned into a frantic rhythm, and I knew I couldn't remain a passive bystander any longer. I raised the key, my determination rising. "I found this. It must mean something. Maybe it can help us." Her gaze flickered to the key, then back to the open door, a flicker of indecision crossing her features. "You don't know what you're getting into," she said, her voice urgent. "We need to leave. Now." "Leave? But what if someone is hurt?" The words tumbled out before I could catch them. There was a pulse of something in the air, too potent to ignore, but the woman shook her head. "The more you know, the worse it gets. Trust me." I hesitated. Every instinct told me to flee. Yet, even with the fear clawing at me, I felt an undeniable need to confront whatever horror lay above us. "If you know what is happening, you have to tell me," I insisted. Without waiting for her response, I turned and rushed toward the kitchen area, scanning for any clues. It was disorganized, papers scattered about as if in a frenzy. One caught my eye, an address, hastily written, with something else beneath it. I picked it up, symbols, strange markings I couldn't recognize. As I focused on it, another sound resonated from above. This time, a low growl emerged, unlike anything I'd ever heard. I whipped around and found the woman staring at me in horror. "You have to go," she shouted, her voice breaking. "We are not safe." The intensity in her voice froze me in place. But just then, the noise escalated to a deafening roar, shaking the walls and sending a shower of dust from the ceiling. I felt something primal surge within me, urging me to act. "Wait," I shouted, grabbing her arm. "Help me figure this out. We can't just leave." When the door behind me slammed shut, trapping us inside. The room darkened as if the shadows themselves were closing in. Now I was sure whatever was happening, I would face it head-on. I didn't care about the danger anymore. The key felt warm against my palm, almost alive. Everything inside me screamed that answers were just out of reach. I had to get to the bottom of this, no matter what the cost. The roar above us faded into a heavy silence, leaving an unsettling emptiness in its wake. My heart raced as I turned back to the woman, determination flooding my veins. "What do you know?" I demanded, gripping the key tighter. She took a step back, hands trembling, eyes darting around the room as if looking for an escape. "This isn't how it was supposed to go. I thought I could protect you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Protect me?" I echoed, confusion merging with my fear. There was something about her, the way she spoke, the urgency in her demeanor, that told me she was caught in something much more complicated than I realized. Suddenly, a scraping sound broke the stillness, a noise like claws dragging across the floorboards above us. My breath caught in my throat. She glanced up, panic flaring in her eyes. "We have to find a way out," she said, edging towards the back door, only to find it locked. "It knows we're here." "Who or what knows?" I pressed, feeling the tension suffocating us both. "I can't explain right now," she pleaded, but I saw the shadows shifting behind her as if something were lurking, waiting. My instinct pulled me towards the kitchen counter, where I noticed a small drawer slightly ajar. It was worth checking. I rushed over, fumbling with the handle as the woman watched me, her voice strained. "Don't. We don't have time." The pull of curiosity was stronger than fear. I yanked the drawer open, revealing a disarray of kitchen tools, but beneath them lay more papers and a small, flickering light. I skimmed through the documents, my eyes catching snippets of phrases that made little sense. "Reckoning gathering the keeper," I muttered, my breath quickening. What did it mean? Then I saw it, a smaller piece of paper stained with shaky writing. It read, "The key unlocks the path, but beware the watchers." I glanced back at her, the pieces starting to fit together. "The key? What does this mean?" Before she could respond, the room shuddered as if a giant had set foot. I heard the growling again, louder this time, echoing ominously from above. My instincts screamed that we were moments away from something terrible. The lights flickered, and in that instant, I made a decision. We don't have to hide anymore. We're going to confront whatever is up there. Her eyes widened, a mix of fear and hope. "You can't be serious. They're not to be underestimated." The growl intensified, transforming into a rhythmic pounding that seemed to match my racing heart. "Then we're taking our chance. We can't be the only ones who know," I said, clutching the key and advancing toward the staircase. As I turned to lead the way, a chilling draft swept through the room, snuffing out the flickering light. The shadows coalesced, and I caught the briefest glimpse, figures at the dark edges, eyes glinting with predatory hunger. In that moment I realized, this wasn't just about fear or survival anymore. I was tangled in a web bigger than myself, and the answers lay just ahead. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what awaited us. Then, just as I reached the first step, the door I thought was locked swung open, revealing a figure cloaked in darkness. My stomach dropped as I faced the unknown. "Welcome," it hissed. "You're just in time." The figure stepped forward, a shadow among shadows. I felt the temperature drop, leaving a chill that prickled my skin. My hand instinctively tightened around the key, a strange comfort in a sea of uncertainty. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice wavering despite my best effort to sound brave. The figure, still shrouded in darkness, tilted its head. "You seek answers, don't you? You want to know why you are here," it said, its voice smooth and eerie. Behind it, I could see the woman stiffen, fear radiating off her like heat from a flame. "I just want to get out of here," I replied, though even to me those words felt weak. The figure laughed, a low, unsettling sound that echoed around us. "You don't get to leave just yet. Not until you understand your place in this game." "Game?" I echoed, unsure what it meant. Panic was rising, clawing at my resolve. "What kind of game?" The figure stepped closer, and I could finally make out faint features in its face, sharp cheekbones, dark eyes that glimmered like obsidian. "The reckoning is upon us. You hold the key to our salvation or our doom." "What are you talking about?" I shot back, each word tearing from my throat. "It's not merely an object," it said, gesturing at the key in my hand. It is a choice, a means to an end. Choose wisely. Just then, the growling resumed, louder and more insistent from somewhere deep within the building. The walls trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. I turned my gaze toward the woman, and I saw the flicker of desperation in her eyes. I took a step back and shouted, "What do you want with us? What is this reckoning?" The figure's expression didn't change. "You will find out, but not in the way you wish." With that, it raised a hand, and the dark corners of the room began to swirl, the shadows twisting and dancing unnaturally, blocking my path. "Run!" I yelled to the woman, the fear propelling me forward while an instinct told me I had to confront this creature. "We can't let it trap us." We bolted back toward the kitchen, hearts racing. With the shadows chasing us, I swung the door open, revealing a narrow hallway. The ominous growl seemed to pulse in the walls, reverberating in my bones. I sprinted ahead, pulling her along, trying to find a way out. Then, I saw a door at the end of the hallway, slightly ajar. "There," I pointed, leading the way. The growling grew closer. I felt the presence of something monstrous behind us. "We have to reach that door. But if we don't," I didn't finish my thought. The hallway seemed to stretch endlessly, the door tauntingly just out of reach. I glanced behind, dread pooling in my stomach. The shadows were lunging at us, and I could hear the whispers now, clamoring in a cacophony of despair. When I noticed something shine in the darkness, a pair of eyes, glinting. I stumbled, feeling the woman tug on my arm, urging me to keep moving. "Just a little further," I shouted, and as we reached the door, I felt a surge of adrenaline. I swung it open. Light flooded the hallway, forcing the shadows to retreat. But as I stepped through, an icy realization struck me. "Wait," I gasped. "What if this is a trap too?" The door slammed behind us, sealing whatever darkness lay within. My chest tightened. We might have escaped one danger, but had we jumped into another one altogether? The light pouring into the room was blinding, forcing me to shield my eyes. I took a breath, trying to steady my racing heart, but the fear lingered just under the surface. Clenching the key, my thoughts swirled. What game was I part of? I glanced at the woman beside me, her face pale and tense. "Are you okay?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She nodded slowly, but I could see the uncertainty in her eyes. "I don't know what just happened back there. What was that thing?" "I wish I knew," I replied, scanning the room. It was small and dimly lit, with peeling wallpaper and a flickering overhead light. Dust motes floated in the air, making the atmosphere feel heavy and suffocating. There was no exit in sight. The only other door in the room looked just as worn as the one we had come through. I moved to investigate, but the floor creaked beneath my feet, making me hesitate. "Do you think it's safe?" she asked, her voice quivering. "I don't know," I admitted, "but we can't just stand here." Determined, I stepped toward the door. As I reached for the handle, an unexpected sound broke through the silence, a faint tapping, rhythmic and almost hypnotic. It seemed to come from the wall beside me. "What is that?" the woman whispered, her eyes darting around the room. I pressed my ear against the wall and strained to listen. The tapping grew louder, a series of knocks that were almost in a pattern. Felt too deliberate to be random. "I think it's coming from outside," I murmured. Suddenly, the whispers from before echoed in my mind, mingled with the growing growl from the shadows we had just escaped. The sound made my skin crawl again. "Should we open the door? Maybe we should call for help," she suggested, her voice a little steadier now. "Who would we call?" I replied, feeling impotent. But deep down, the fear of the figure in the shadows gnawed at me. I couldn't let that thing find us again. I turned back to the door. "Let us just see what's out there. Maybe it's safe." With a steadying breath, I pulled open the door. The hallway outside was eerily quiet, but the tapping persisted. I stepped through, looking left and right. Shadows flickered in the corners, but no figures loomed. "That sound," I started, but then I saw it. A flash of movement down the hallway caught my eye. "Did you see that?" "What?" she breathed, now closer to me. "There. It moved." I turned back, and the tapping stopped, replaced by an unsettling silence. "I don't like this," I said, a shiver coursing through me. "We need to go." But as I took a step forward, an icy breeze swept through, brushing against my neck. I looked back to find the woman staring at a shadow coiling around the doorframe, slowly pulling itself into the room. Panic surged. "We need to run. Now." As we sprinted down the hall, I felt the weight of the key in my pocket, a reminder of the choice that still haunted me. "I have to figure out what this means," I thought desperately. But before I could process my next move, I heard a voice echo in the distance. "You cannot escape your fate." My breath caught in my throat. What had I gotten myself into? As we ran down the hallway, I could feel the walls closing in, suffocating, as if they were pushing back against me. I glanced over my shoulder and saw the shadow retreating, its form melding into the gloom like smoke. It was both reassuring and chilling. "Where do we go?" The woman's voice was tight with fear. Her eyes darted from side to side, searching for an escape. "Just keep moving," I urged. The floor creaked angrily beneath our feet. Each step felt like a challenge against the groaning old building. Ahead, a door stood slightly ajar. I hesitated, torn between pressing on or taking a chance. My gut screamed at me to keep going, but curiosity gnawed at me like a rat. I pulled the door open wider, heart racing. The room inside was cluttered yet inviting, filled with strange knickknacks and dusty furniture. A flickering bulb gave it a ghostly illumination. "Maybe we can hide here," I suggested, stepping inside. "No, we can't stay in one place too long," she insisted, her voice sharp. "We need to find a way out." But just as she spoke, the tapping started again, louder this time, echoing off the walls like a heartbeat. A shudder ran down my spine. I looked again toward the door, but my attention was caught by a dusty mirror on the wall, its surface warped but reflecting something more, an image of us, standing together. Except, behind us, there was a flicker of movement, a dark figure edging closer. "We have to go," I shouted, my heart racing. I grabbed her arm and pulled her away from the mirror, but my eyes lingered for just a moment too long. Then I saw it. In the reflection, the figure was no longer in the hallway. It was right behind us, its featureless face twisted into a grin that made bile rise in my throat. "Let us go." I yanked her back into the hallway, and we pushed past the door, slamming it shut behind us. The tapping intensified, punctuated by a low growl that rumbled through the air, vibrating in my chest. "Where now?" she gasped, panic flaring in her eyes. I looked down both ends of the hall. One way was dark, flickering overhead lights casting erratic shadows, while the other was filled with a strange, pulsating light that felt undeniably inviting. "Maybe we should check out that light," I suggested hesitantly, though a part of me wanted to flee in the opposite direction entirely. The noise was getting louder, a haunting symphony of knocks and whispered breaths. Before I could make up my mind, the lights along the hallway began to strobe, casting the area in a psychedelic glow that made my head spin. The growl grew louder, reverberating like thunder. "Get ready," I shouted. That S when I heard it, footsteps, heavy and deliberate, approaching from down the darkened hallway. My breath caught in my throat as the footsteps sounded closer than I would have liked. "Run," I yelled, racing toward the pulsating light, when out of the corner of my eye, I spotted a door at the end of the hallway. Not just any door, but one that looked identical to the one we came from. Had we just circled back? What was happening? As we drew nearer to it, a realization struck me. I recognized the key in my pocket. What if it opened that door? I reached for it, but before I could act, I heard a voice that sent chills down my spine. "You've chosen poorly." Everything felt like it was spiraling out of control. I had to decide fast before it was too late. I darted for the door, the soft jingle of the key in my pocket like a taunt against the chaos around us. Adrenaline surged as the footsteps grew louder. My mind raced. Had it really been a good idea to come back here? "You've chosen poorly." The voice echoed again. It wasn't just a sound. It felt like a presence, wrapping around me like fog. I had to act. "Stay close," I shouted over my shoulder, fumbling with the key. The heavy door loomed before me, a solid barrier against whatever was chasing us. I fit the key into the lock. The growl reached a fever pitch. I twisted the key, praying it would turn. A click reverberated through the corridor. A brief sigh of relief mingled with impending dread. I pushed the door open just in time to feel the chill of the air behind me. As if the dark figure was almost upon us, we stumbled inside, and instinctively, I bolted the door and pressed my back against it. We were both gasping for breath, the adrenaline still coursing through my veins. "Where are we?" she asked, peering into the dimly lit room. It looked like a storage area. Cardboard boxes piled high, shelves cluttered with forgotten artifacts, dust motes dancing in the slanting light. It felt different from the hallway, as if the air here was thicker, more oppressive. "I don't know," I admitted, taking a moment to gather my thoughts. "But we can't stay in here suddenly." The boxes shifted, a loud creak echoing from the far corner. My heart lurched. Had something moved? I squinted into the shadows, searching for movement. "I think we should get out," she whispered, her eyes wide. I nodded, feeling the weight of a decision lingering over us. We turned back to the door, but before we could take a step, a shattering noise erupted from the other side. The force of it made the door rattle in its frame, and the shadows around us seemed to deepen. "We need to go," I insisted urgently, almost shouting. I grabbed her arm, ready to push through the door again. But then a figure emerged from the gloom of the room, a disheveled man. His hair wild, eyes wide with delirium. He stumbled toward us. "You can't," he cried, voice cracking. "You'll never escape." His presence sent a fresh wave of panic through me. "What do you mean?" I demanded, confusion bubbling with fear. "You don't understand." He waved an arm toward the shelves crammed with odd trinkets and knickknacks, each shadow seeming to shift and writhe closer to us. "You're trapped here, in their game." A laugh echoed from the darkness beyond the door, chilling my bones. The tapping returned, but this time it was accompanied by a chorus of whispers, each one laced with malice. "What game?" I asked, my voice almost a whisper now, struggling to stay calm. But just as the man seemed ready to answer, another crash sounded from behind the door, followed by a low, gurgling growl. A new layer of terror gripped me. I recognized that sound. "I think they're here," I whispered to her. The walls felt like they were pressing in, and I turned to the man. "We have to move. We can't stay." In that instant, the door burst open, splintering wood flying everywhere. As the dark figure loomed in the doorway, I grabbed her hand, ready to run deeper into the shadows, heart racing with the realization that we had only just begun to uncover the horrors of this building. We ran deeper into the storage area, shadows gathering around us like a storm. I could feel my pulse in my throat, the chaotic noise behind us fading as we rushed down a narrow path between towering stacks of boxes. The man's warning chased us, clinging to my thoughts like a bad dream. "Wait," he shouted, his voice breaking the oppressive silence. I hesitated, glancing back. "You need to know what?" I snapped, the frustration and fear boiling together. "We don't have time. Please," he pleaded. "There are rules. You can't let them see you." Before I could respond, we caught sight of a flickering light ahead. It blinked like a beacon, piercing the gloom. I pulled her along, my instincts screaming for us to reach it. As we drew closer, I realized it wasn't just a light. It was a doorway, partially open, a strange glow spilling out like it was alive. My gut twisted. This wasn't an exit, this looked like something else. Something that felt wrong. "What if it's a trap?" she whispered, glancing back at the still dark storage area. "It might be our only chance," I replied. Uncertainty pooled in my stomach, but I couldn't let fear paralyze us now. Before we could step through the door, the man staggered up to us, his eyes wild. "You can't go in there. It's their domain." "What do you mean, their domain?" My voice wavered. Panic surged as I leaned closer, desperate for answers. They feast on fear," he stammered. "They twist your mind. You have to remember what's real or you'll be lost like the others." "Others." The word turned my stomach. "What others?" I pressed. But the man only shook his head, and a low growl echoed from the storage room. Whatever was lurking beyond the door was getting closer. My heart raced as I grabbed her hand again, squeezing it tight. "Come on," I urged. "We have to make a decision." She hesitated, her eyes flicking to the glow and then to the man. "What should we do?" "I don't know," I shot back, frustration spilling over. But standing here isn't an option. With barely a moment's thought, I pushed through the doorway. The light enveloped us, and a sickly sweetness filled the air. It was overwhelming, swirling and wrapping around us. I felt a wave of dizziness crash over me. Then the doorway slammed shut behind us with a deafening clatter. I turned to find the man staring at the door with wide eyes, mouth moving but no sound coming out. I looked at her. Panic etched on my face. What just happened? The room around us was alive, pulsating with energy, the walls shimmering. I couldn't shake the feeling that we had crossed some invisible line. Before I could ask her if this was real, something shifted in the shadows. A soft whisper reached my ears, slipping through the heavy air. "Welcome to the game," it hissed. My breath caught in my throat. I couldn't comprehend what was happening. Were we really trapped? I needed answers. That S when I saw it. An old, cracked mirror on the wall, reflecting a distorted image of myself. My heart raced again, but it was not just fear this time. I recognized the woman beside me in the mirror. Her face wasn't mine, and then everything went dark. When the darkness lifted, I found myself back in the small room lined with cardboard boxes, the faint tapping echoing off the walls once more. Panic flared within me, but I couldn't fight the terrible pull of the flickering light that beckoned just beyond the space we now occupied. My heart raced as I turned to the woman, her pale face etched with confusion and dread. "What just happened?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She shook her head, eyes wide, as though struggling to grasp the enormity of our situation. I think we went into whatever that was," she said, her voice trembling. "We're supposed to play by their rules now." That thought sent chills down my spine. What rules? Just as I asked, the tapping broke into the rhythmic pounding again, louder than before, as though something or someone was getting impatient. I could feel the walls constricting even more, suffocating me with uncertainty. "Let us get out of here," I urged. "We can't stay." But as I turned, desperate to find a way, the floor shifted beneath me, a tremor racing through the space, shaking the boxes stacked haphazardly around us. "Wait," she called, her voice sharp with alarm. "What if they're right behind us?" The thought sent a jolt of adrenaline coursing through me. "Then we have to act first." I lunged toward the heavy door we had just come through, but it stood resolute, solid and silent, as if it had never been there at all. I pounded on it, but the sound echoed back, mocking me. "Look." Her voice was small, trembling. I turned to see a sliver of light streaming from a crack in a wall near the back of the room. There. With little time to think, I dashed toward the light, the key still clutched tightly in my fist. Once there, I pulled at the wall, fingernails scraping at the surface, desperation guiding my actions. "Can you help?" I shouted over the pounding that resonated through the air. She joined me, hands pressed against the wall, and together we pushed. Just then, the room quaked. A shadow loomed before us, dark and stormy, echoing with malevolent whispers that made my skin crawl. "You can't escape," it hissed, as if the very walls breathed its warning. The thudding grew louder, louder still. I felt an overwhelming urge to turn and bolt, but there was nowhere to go. "Push harder," I grunted, determination giving me strength. With a final surge, the wall gave way, and a small opening opened into what had to be the last refuge. A chorus of voices rose behind us, shrill with anger. "Come back! You belong to us!" Without hesitation, we dove through the opening, tumbling into a darkness that felt different, eerie yet freeing. I could still hear the echoes of the thudding fade as if the very air pushed us away from their realm. That we landed on cool ground, the air suddenly fresh and tantalizing, drawn as if we were stepping out of a fever dream. I blinked, eyes adjusting to the dim light of what appeared to be a vast, abandoned alleyway. "What just happened?" I gasped, looking at her, trying to catch my breath. The silence wrapped around us, a blanket of confusion. I expected an answer, a guide through this mystery, but all she offered was a matching fear mirrored in her gaze. "I don't know," she replied breathlessly, the truth of it hanging heavy between us. Even as relief settled in my chest, my thoughts raced with uncertainty. Were they able to follow? How much of this reality was dictated by that sinister game? And most importantly, what did it mean for us now? The howls in my mind faded into the distance, but the shadows lurked in the corners of my vision, teasing my thoughts with their lingering presence. Whatever entity existed within those walls, it felt like it was waiting, maybe even watching. I took a step forward, the key still clutched in my hand, cold and heavy despite the moderate warmth of the outside air. What if this isn't over? I muttered, instinctively glancing back over my shoulder. Her gaze followed mine, uncertainty filling the silence. "We can't keep running." I nodded, the truth settling in uncomfortably. We could never truly escape the shadows that had marked us. But amid the chaos and lingering dread, something new stirred, the faintest glimmer of determination. "Let us find answers," I resolved. "Whatever it takes." And as we stepped further down the alleyway, the faint tapping resumed, this time distant, as if it belonged to another realm entirely. I tried to silence the questions swirling in my mind, the possibilities of what may still await us. The pulsating uncertainty would have to wait. We had survived this confrontation, but I knew it had changed me. I was no longer just a pawn in their game. I was a player now, waiting for my next move. I moved to follow the narrow path ahead, not knowing if I was leaving or chasing something far worse. But deep down I felt it was only the beginning.